6th annual Vigil on the Common. This would have been the 7th. Unfortunately, COVID hit us pretty badly. As you're all well aware, we were unable to hold this memorial last year due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Thankfully, we are able to honor our loved ones tonight as they rightly should be. I'd like to thank Mayor Scott Galvin and Rick Jolly for their continued support in hosting this Vigil of Remembrance. I would also like to thank Fire Chief Donald Kenton, Chief of Police Robert Rufo, and all the first responders in our city that work tirelessly to protect us all. I would also like to thank Lenny Burnham of the DPW and his crew for making sure that everything on the Common is perfect. Thanks also go out to Lauren Coleman from the Woburn Public Media Center for taping this broadcast, for broadcasting on a local access channel. Last, I'd also like to thank all of our volunteers and my family for all of the work that they put in to make this event possible. At this time, Mayor Galvin would like to say a few words.
Welcome, everybody. I want to thank Carmen and Justin's Voice and his wife Marie and their family for their annual support of this important event and everything they do during the year. They really do a lot to help people who are grieving, and they went through it themselves, a terrible death of their son, and I know that I see other people out here who have gone through the same thing. My heart goes out to every one of you, and your struggles back and your attempts to help other people who are going through the same thing and struggling. And it's always a big victory when you can reach out to somebody and help them overcome their demons. I know there are other people out tonight. I'd like to recognize Kevin Meany. Kevin's a longtime probation officer, worked in the city, now he's in Framingham, and he's been a great source of help for people who are struggling. So Kevin, thank you for your work on a daily basis. I also know Jeff Dillon's here, city councilor. He's at all the events. He's going to say a few words. A couple school committee members, Pat Chisholm. Pat, thank you for your continued support. And Colleen Cormier also from the school committee. I want to thank you both. And of course, Rich Haggerty, our state rep, who is always helping the city with funding needs, and he's got a special place in his heart as well for substance abuse. So thanks for everything you do, Rich. At this time, I'd like to read a proclamation for August 31st, which is International Overdose Awareness Day. It marks the 21st anniversary. And the City Common has been decorated in purple as a symbol of awareness of overdose and its effects. And I want to thank Lenny and the DPW for their continued efforts to make our Common festive on these occasions. They'll always have different color lights, but thank you to those guys. Whereas overdose awareness is a stark reminder of the harm that drugs inflict on our society. It's a time to remember those who have fallen victims to overdose, as well as those who have come out of the dark hole victorious with the help and support of loved ones and friends by their side. And whereas overdose awareness also aims to reduce the stigma attached to the issue, most of which is faced by the families of the victims and many who are not aware of the factors behind overdose and unfairly blame the victims. We also recognize the grief felt by the families and the friends, remembering those who have died as a result of drug overdose. And whereas residents can help prevent overdose death by being aware of the signs and knowing how to respond to overdose, and the City of Woburn has taken great measures to make Narcan available for our residents, as well as to provide prescription drop box locations and drug take-back programs to residents, so residents can dispose of unused medicines and prescription drugs safely. Now, therefore, I, Scott Galvin, Mayor of the City of Woburn, do hereby call this observance to the attention of the citizens of Woburn and ask you to please take a moment to remember those who have lost and those battling to overcome addiction on August 31st, 2021. And Carmen had requested that on that day we lower the flag to half-staff, which we will gladly do on that day to recognize the victims on the 21st day. So I want to thank everybody, and my sincerest condolences go out to those who have lost a loved one and also for those struggling. So thank you.
At this time, I'd like to have Representative Rich Haggerty step up and say a few words.
Thanks so much. And thanks everybody for being out here tonight to raise awareness. It's never been more important. When we look at the data, when we see the numbers, we know they're not just numbers. They're loved ones, they're brothers, they're sisters, their husbands, their wives. They're people in every one of your lives who you've lost. We've seen the numbers the last couple of years begin to go in the wrong direction. For several years in the Commonwealth, we saw our numbers begin to tick down. 2020, we went back up again. Whether it was the pandemic or other reasons, it's still not clear, but what we do know, and what is clear, is that our commitment has to remain laser focused on funding, laser focused on sober living homes, and laser focused on support and raising awareness to stop the stigma. That's why I'm here tonight, to join all of you, to mourn, to remember, to raise awareness, and also to recommit ourselves to the cause of this issue. Thanks so much for having me here tonight, and if my office can ever be of assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Over the past year, due to COVID-19, the other pandemic, that of substance use disorder, has been pushed to the background. In 2010, there were over 21,000 drug-related deaths. In 2019, that number rose to over 70,000, and in 2020, the number grew to over 93,000 nationwide. As Rich just stated, the numbers have been going in the wrong direction. There are a multitude of self-support groups that throughout the state and the country. Many provide emotional support to grieving parents, or information on who to contact to help navigate the never-ending lists of where to get help. There are also foundations that supply financial help for those who cannot afford the high cost of detox, rehab, and sober living, all of which are instrumental in helping those affected by this horrible disease. A few years ago, I was privileged to meet a woman who is a leader in the state, whose mission is to help those who need it most in their time of despair. Cheryl Juer is the founder and president of Teen Sharing, which is a non-profit organization for bereaved parents who have lost a child to substance use disorder, and who is dedicated to supporting each and other through our grief by providing understanding, friendship, and most of all, hope. Cheryl has lost 2 sons to this awful disease, Corey, who passed away 10 years ago, and most recently her son, Sean, who I knew through working with Teen Challenge. At this time, I'd like to introduce Cheryl.
So my name is Cheryl Juer, and I am the founder of a national nonprofit organization called Teen Sharing. We're an organization of parents that have all lost our children to addiction. I lost my son Corey on February 24th, 2011. I was living in Florida at the time when I got the phone call. I knew Corey dabbled in drugs. I thought it was something all kids in high school did, and that he would outgrow it. At the age of 23, Corey was living in a halfway house, had a 4.5-month-old daughter, was on food stamps, and couldn't keep a job. He was the youngest of my 3 children, and I was furious with him for the choices he was making, and did not understand why he wouldn't just stop. After all, I didn't raise my boys to be like this. Since Corey passed, I have learned differently. And I've had to learn to forgive myself for not understanding what he tried telling me so often. And I've had to learn he wasn't choosing to use drugs. The drugs chose to use him, and they killed him. My baby boy died in that halfway house, all alone, knowing he couldn't talk to me about his addiction, and God knows he tried. For the next few years, while still living in Florida, I suffered in my grief and my guilt alone. I flew up here every 3 months to sit with him at his grave and cry. And finally, I couldn't be away any longer, and we moved back to our home state of Massachusetts. August 5th, 2015, I met with 6 other moms for dinner, all who had lost their children the same way as I lost Corey. That night changed my life forever. Everything I had felt, all the grief, the guilt, I learned that they all felt the exact same way. I wasn't going crazy. I just met a handful of moms who got it, who understood my pain and my grief, and I understood theirs. It was from that night that I realized how much grieving parents whose child had died from addiction, needed one another. And then we became advocates. October 3rd, 2015, the seven of us jumped on a plane and headed to the Fed Up rally in Washington, D.C. We met some other parents there while we were there. And when we came back, I started our first chapter of Teen Sharing in Massachusetts. I had no idea of the plans God had for me, but he did. So I threw my life into creating new chapters, a place for parents to go so they would never feel alone. And I threw my life into doing advocacy now that I understand the disease of addiction. The project we have been working on for the past 2 years is trying to get our states to lower the flag on International Overdose Awareness Day, and we had several members of Congress write a letter to the President, as well as submit a resolution. I was just told the other day, another year, and the answer is no. And as disappointed as I was, I couldn't give up hope. I knew our children's voices still need to be heard to help eradicate the stigma, and that we are going to have to work harder because their lives matter. For me more so, because this past June 25th, I lost another son. My middle son, Sean, had used drugs with Corey and continued to do so for 3 years after losing him. And he lived with that guilt of Corey dying until he got into a 15-month rehab at Teen Challenge. He did so well in the program there that they offered him a job. I'm going to guess most of you might have known Sean, because I don't think there was a person he didn't help in one way or another. Like me, Sean set out to save the world because of his brother. Me for grieving families, and he for those in the throes of addiction. We were a team to be reckoned with. Sean relapsed in 2018 when he was going through some personal issues. His wife's father lived with them and was dying of cancer. His medicine cabinet was full, and Sean chose to do a few pills to take the edge off. An addict can't do just a few pills. And so Sean became fully addicted again. But this time was different. I understood the disease of addiction. I could save him, or so I thought. Sean never recognized he had a problem, and that was the part I knew I couldn't fix. I could only love him as best I could. Sean lost his job at Teen Challenge. He was getting divorced. He was estranged from his adult daughter and her new family. He lost his home. He got into a car accident in January and lost his license. He was just given a 2-week notice at the halfway house. He had nowhere to go. Sean lost his will to live. Sean died this past June 25th of an overdose in the bedroom of the halfway house he was living in, all alone. I couldn't save him. Only God could. And he did. I had 5 years of amazing recovery with my son. We were as close as could be, and I never gave up on him, ever. Now, if you knew Sean, you know how competitive he was. When he did a project of any kind, it was with everything he had, and good wasn't good enough. It had to be the best and most successful. And he was. I rooted for him at Teen Challenge, and he rooted for me with Team Sharing. We were a pair. Sean left me with a challenge to fulfill. Back in January, Team Sharing was approved by the Registry of Motor Vehicles as a nonprofit to have overdose awareness specialty license plates. We need to turn in 750 applications for these plates before production will begin. Sean challenged me and said all he wanted for Christmas was those 750 applications, nothing else. I accepted the challenge. Piece of cake, I told him. Well, up to date, we have about 250, and I need 500 more before Christmas, just to let you know. So I am so fresh and grieving now, a second child. I'm trying to navigate this new path without 2 of my children. But I can tell you this, when I am able, I will be back in full swing. Sean and Corey will be my guides. I will now do this not with them here physically, but with them here in my heart, and they will continue to make a difference, only now through me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. At this time, we will have a reading of those who have left us all too soon. The names will be read by John Perroni, Jeff Dillon, and Brian Tate.
For those who have passed, and to begin, we apologize for any names mispronounced, but we just want to take a moment to recognize all who have left us too soon. Michael Richard Albino, Tiffany Albert, Billy Elahunas, Austin Anderson, Maria Andrews, Francis Belagera, Jeffrey Walsh Murillo, Michaela Barry, Nick Bean, Maureen Ann Below Perez, Timothy Michael Bennett, John M. Bereznowski Jr., Colton Berg, Anthony Berlandi Jr., Katie Beavis, Carrie Ann Glampi, Michael Blasi, Robert James Borelli, Dane Michael Brandano, Jesse Brown, Robert Brundage,
Christopher Buckley, Teresa Buckley, Sean Bullen, Roy Burrell, Michael Buzik, Jeremiah Camilio, Allison Capola, James Carlson, John Bubba Carter, Bryant Carter, Kyle Casey, Martina Marico Patina, Christopher Chase, Christopher Clark, Amber Marie Cleveland, Jessica Clifford, Rebecca Clifford, Daniel J. Clifford III, Ariel Clune, Daniel Cogan, Tyler James Fullerton, Ricky Collins.
Derek Colston, Paul Conley, Jillian Contrado, Nicole Nikki Cook, Justin Andrew Carly Kerner, Andrew Craig, Joe Jason Crocker, Michael Cruz, Eric Sear, Jillian Dell, J.D. DeChico, Kyle Dakotas, Joseph Michael DeLuca Jr., Alicia Marie DeMarco, Arena Marie DeMarco, Kenneth James Dion, Patrick Dio, Kyle Deacon, Eric Paul Diamond, Kevin Diddick, Nicholas DeMala, Sonny Delgado.
Courtney DiPietro, Joey Dominici, Tommy Donahue, Patrick Donovan, Stephen Doucette, Owen Duffy Jr., Alyssa E. Dunn, Jason Dunham, Nicole Marie Dutra, Jason Michael Earl, Brett Eisenhower, Kelly Grace Endicott, Jason Erickson, Daniel Espinosa, Jesse Everett, Derek Fall, Christopher Zekas, Chris Ferrara, Scott Ferreira, John J. Viramonte, Jen Finn, Joseph Patrick Finn,
Brian Foley, Kelly Foley, Donald Fuller, John Gamos, Michael Gardner, Jay Garrity, Christopher Giancopoulos, Matthew Giannetti, Chris Gino Genovese, Marlon Gillard, Ryan Gilligan, Devin Gerard, Josh Giroux, Naomi Goldstein, Manny Gonzalez, Robbie Goodell, Jennifer Gorham, Erin Gorman, Ruth Hack, Jordan Nader Haddad, Ryan Harrington, Thomas Hart.
Ruth Hawk, Samantha R. Hayes, Lenny Hensis III, Diane Hesketh, Ashley Erin Higston, Mandy Hochter, Ian Hodgman, Crystal Hogan, Michael Holden, Joshua Howard, Luke Howard, Mary Howell, Paul Howell, Joseph Joe Herkett, Alex Jackson, Stephanie Giese, Jason Givoli, Sean Juer, Kelly Catherine Johnson, Matt Johnson, Thomas Johnson Jr., Samantha Lynn Keegan.
Justin Kelleher, Jared Kenny, Ashley Keon, Sean Kitchen, Richard Kiley, Gregory King, Benjamin Kowalski, Christina Kalka Solula, Christopher Todd Whistler, David Lynn, Jason Lamastro, Mark Lovell, Michael Lovell, Justin Scott Lucchese, Jimmy Lynch, Robert McDonald, Jason McCann, Trevor Dean Baylor.
Jimmy Maloney III, Derek Marsden, Cassandra Maroney, Jeanette Marson, Matthew Massaconi, Aaron Matos, Colleen McCarthy, Kevin McCarty, Charlene McLean, Charlene McLeod, Tommy McCool, Eric Mark McDonald, Matthew Mac McDonough, Timothy John McGowan, Samantha McGrath, Justin McCrae, Paul P. Meehan Jr., Matthew Benjamin Mello, Randy Lynn Mello, Matthew Mellon, Joseph Anthony Memo, Corey Merrill.
Sean Merrill, Patricia Messina, Evgeny Jean Nikitin, Curtis Ryan Miller, Michael Matrano, Tracy Molinari, Kenny Molly Jr., Polly Mullen, Brian Murphy, Corey James Murphy, Lisa Nardella Splain, Taylor Nelson, James Michael Nooner, Kyle Noonan, Erica Dawn Norling, Brian O'Connor, Michael O'Hara, Sean O'Neill, Greg Ogle, Brian O'Connor, Patrick O'Connor.
Sean O'Neill, Douglas John Park Jr., Kaylee Park, Daniel Peckham, Matthew Peckham, Stephen J. Pesci Jr., Timothy Scott Pfeiffer, Jacob Michael Phelps, Matthew Piazza, Jesse Deidre Plant, Julianne Price, Alyssa Justine Rakowski, Joseph Reed, Joseph Reardon, Victor Rostanio, Kyle E. Richards, Christina Rivera, Robert Robson, Ian Roderick, Ryan Rogers, Suzanne Rooney.
Stuart Rothman, Jimmy Rouse, Michael Roddick, Rebecca Solis, Jessica Marie Santos, Justin Saunders, Emmett Scannell, Joseph Scarpone, Christopher Schlotz, Brad Schurer, Brian Schwab, Daniel Patrick Schwartz, Billy Scott, Charlie Shea, Matthew Shea, Jen Shuhan, Cheryl Siegel, Gregory Siegel, Jeffrey Silva, Megan Silva, Brandon Simmet,
Brittany Slobodkin, Richard Smith, Kiara Rose Smith, Tori Smolag, Deborah Splain, Paul Anthony St. Andre, Eddie Stafford, John Stappen, Catherine Steele, Jane Steinberg, Amy Steiner, John Steiner, James Jimmy Stephen Fitzgerald, Benjamin Stevens, Christopher Stevens, Billy Stewart, Hannah Strauss, David Sweet, Christopher Swindell, Jonathan Leonard Testa, Scott Tobin.
Nicholas Mark Tedisco, Anthony James Tedisco, Ryan Trant, Michelle Christine Trenton, Ryan Troy Tripp Jr., Victor Verone, Anthony Vavillo, Jeff Wentus, Danny Wabiscus, Michael Wheaton, Andrew Wilder, Bobby Wiseman, Arthur Wood III, Kathleen Wyman, Mark Zips,
Tim Landers, Vicky Costanza, Sabrina Best, Matthew Davis, Jeff Haggerty, Brian Walsh, Kyle Henry.
Casey Ortiz. Thank you all for the readings. As you notice, the list has gotten quite long. We're up over almost to 300 names. And when we started this in 2015, I think we had 30. So it just goes to show you what's happened over the last 6 years. It's been a tradition after the reading, we sing a song to try to help us all heal, and try to help us with the faith that this can all get better. This song is the Hallelujah song, originally written by Leonard Cohen, who has since passed away. I redid the lyrics for it so it could be a better fit for what we're all experiencing here today, and to help us move forward in the future. This is Marie's favorite song, the Hallelujah. So I think there's some lyrics out there. If you want to sing along, you can. Just listen, that's fine too. We stand together, here is one, the battle that we have begun. We'll let the whole world know we are ready to take this fight up for our sons, our daughters, and then everyone can take comfort in a spoken hallelujah. 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 We never understood their pain. We never had to play that game of life and death and searching for an answer to satisfy the constant hell, to break out of the devil's spell that never knew the peace of hallelujah. 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 With love we stand by candlelight. There is no wrong and there is no right. There's only open faith in compassion. And maybe there will come a day when all this sorrow goes away and tears of joy will be singing hallelujah. 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 thank you all for coming out tonight. And remember, there is always someone who you can reach out to when you need it most. God bless and good night.
Thank